Welcome to the deep dive. You've been digging into some really interesting stuff, and we're here to help unpack it all, pull out the key pieces.
Make sense of what really matters. Consider us your guides through the noise.
Exactly. And today we're diving into something a bit different. It's excerpts from a YouTube live stream.
That's right. Wybreed W. Pulse, Izas Po Nichwizja Live by Jasnowidzi Krzysztof Jackowski Official.
So it's a recording of a live session, predictions, observations. It's definitely not your typical news source.
No, not at all. But it gives a fascinating look into certain perspectives, certain anxieties maybe around current events.
It's kind of a cultural snapshot, and our goal here isn't to judge the predictions, right? It's to explore the content.
Precisely. What themes pop up, what concerns are being addressed, what does it tell us about the people tuning in? We're looking at the underlying messages.
Okay. And context-wise, the recording seems to be from before May 18th because that election date comes up in the viewer chat.
Yes, that seems right. So where should we start? There's quite a mix of topics in there.
Well, maybe with that point where the speaker reflects on a previous prediction he felt good about, the one about the Pope.
Ah, yes. He mentions feeling satisfied because he'd predicted a pope with a connection to North and South America, a kind of missionality.
And he points out the current Pope is American, but spent, 20 years doing mission work in Peru?
Yeah, so he sees that as lining up with his feeling. It's presented as a successful hit, which, can build credibility with his audience.
Right. It establishes that sense of insight. Makes sense. But then the mood shifts quite drastically.
It really does. He talks about the tragedy of the University of Warsaw, clearly something that shocked him.
He brings up the media description of the attacker, calling him a super predator.
And that disturbing detail about the attacker apparently considering someone else a store clerk before going to the university.
Just awful. And the victim, a woman who worked at the university, it casts a heavy shadow before he gets into the election talk.
Definitely. So moving on to the Polish presidential elections, viewers mentioned May 18th for the first round.
And he calls these elections very difficult. He mentions a suggestion that needs dealing with. Bit vague there.
Yes, that vagueness is interesting, allows people to project their own worries onto it, perhaps.
And then comes that really jarring image.
The car bomb. Yeah, he says he gets this feeling of a car bomb exploding in a crowd while he's focusing on the election.
But he clarifies it's not necessarily linked to the Polish election itself, even though the thought came up then.
Right. It's a powerful, unsettling image, even with the disclaimer. Taps into general fears about violence, instability.
Okay, so after that feeling, he predicts something specific about the campaign itself.
Yes, a staged presentation by one of the political committees before the first round.
The goal being, what? To make people feel sorry for them?
Essentially, yeah. To evoke pity and make their opponents look insane was the word he used, I think. A calculated political move.
Sounds like a prediction of some kind of dirty trick or political theater.
He describes it as something acted out, maybe while candidates are traveling, near the end of the campaign.
And it looks serious, like sabotage, but no casualties.
Correct. The idea is to portray a candidate as being attacked, as a victim, to gain sympathy. It's about shaping the narrative.
Interesting. So less about actual harm, more about perception management. Then he talks about the outcome of the first round.
He predicts a stalemate, and he contrasts predicting this election, with all its variables, to predicting the Pope, which was a single choice. Acknowledges the difficulty.
That seems fair. Elections are messy.
And then he gets specific about the first round results. He thinks Trzaskowski will likely get the most votes.
With a decent lead, too.
Yeah, he suggests maybe 6 to 8 percentage points over the next candidates.
And his reasoning?
Strong turnout from voters aligned with Trzaskowski's party, PO. He even throws out numbers.
Oh, like what percentage?
He says around 38, 39%, maybe even up to 42%. Which he notes is high for a first round.
Okay. And he makes a point of saying he doesn't personally support Trzaskowski, right?
Yes, he states that clearly. Adds a layer of perhaps perceived objectivity despite making a prediction.
And who does he see coming in second?
He predicts Naraki, but he calls this a huge risk.
A huge risk. Interesting phrasing. Does he elaborate?
Not much, but he connects it back to an older statement he apparently made about the next president entering with a bang and being bad for Poland. He adds that entering with a bang could mean different things, leaves it a bit ambiguous.
Okay, so Trzaskowski likely wins round 1. Naraki second is a risk, and it's definitely going to a second round.
That's the prediction. Trzaskowski has reason to be happy after round one, according to him.
He also mentions his own preferred candidate, doesn't he, without naming names?
Yes, describes them as very expressive, specific, and factual.
Yeah.
Says he doesn't want to name them to avoid agitating.
Keeping things slightly neutral there.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the election stuff, but then the conversation takes a complete left turn.
Right. Suddenly we're talking about reincarnation. Someone must have asked about evidence for it.
And his reasons for believing.
Two main things.
Yeah.
One is just a feeling. I feel it, he says. The other is logic.
Logic. How does logic come into it for him?
It's based on the perceived injustice of the world. You know, people being born into vastly different circumstances. Looks, health, wealth.
Okay, so reincarnation explains that inequality.
That's his argument. He says without it, life seems chaotic and unfair, like the short life of a mayfly. Reincarnation gives it deeper meaning, suggesting maybe current injustices relate to karma or past lives.
He kind of connects it to Christian ideas too, doesn't he?
Yeah, loosely. He mentions the idea of being born with sin and needing to buy ourselves out, suggesting reincarnation could be a path for that karmic balancing.
It's quite a philosophical detour. Does he think it goes on forever?
He leaves that open whether it's eternal or if souls eventually reach some kind of liberation.
And he uses that analogy, God as a sphere.
Yeah, perfect sphere of energy, creating smaller spheres, souls out of loneliness, then putting energy needs to matter, creating diverse human personalities. It's a very unique personal cosmology.
It's definitely unique. Okay, let's steer back to the predictions. He mentions someone called Brown.
Yes. He predicts Brown's result should be surprising.
Surprising good or surprising bad?
Seems to imply surprisingly strong. But he adds a caveat. He thinks the nation isn't ready for Brown yet.
Why not?
He talks about long-standing dependencies, media influence, hindering belief in true independence. Also mentions taught political correctness being misleading.
And he worries about Brown being targeted before the election, like negative info coming out.
Yes, he expresses that fear, but still maintains Brown might be a serious contender. He links this back to another prediction.
Right, about something bad being revealed about the person who could save Poland.
Exactly. He suggests this might be Brown and explicitly says it's not now Rocky because negative stuff about him is already out there. Adds a bit of intrigue.
Okay. Then a quick hop to international affairs, India and Pakistan.
Yeah, someone asked about conflict there. He says probably nothing to fear immediately.
Would.
But he does predict a serious global conflict could start to ignite around July of this year. A broader, more worrying prediction.
It's July. Okay. Then he circles back to the Polish election again, briefly.
Just to reiterate his prediction that Trzaskowski will lose in the second round. Tells people to be patient. Sticks to his guns on that one.
Got it. Then there's that bit where someone suggests he should run for president.
Yeah. His reaction is pretty strong. Absolutely not.
Why?
He says he wouldn't feel qualified, citing his lack of education. He emphasizes how serious the job is.
And he tells that story about President Duda.
Yeah, waiting an hour to meet Trump as an example of what he sees as poor representation for Poland. It shows his concern for the country's image, even as he dismisses running himself.
Okay. And he remembers the word he forgot earlier, about the Pope.
Oh, right, pilgrim. Just clarifying that point about the Pope's travels and reiterating he thinks he's a good Pope.
Then a really interesting question comes up about his visions.
About whether the deceased people he helps find ever, assist him in other visions.
And his answer
is no, they don't. But then he tells that story.
The nun, Sister Uberman.
Yes. About locating her body. And then afterwards, he, his partner Kezia, and her daughter Amelia all felt her presence quite strongly. Amelia even said she felt watched.
Wow. And he mentions other nuns praying for him.
Yeah, a group of nuns apparently offered daily prayers for his health and gratitude. He stresses how long they felt Sister Uberman's presence. It highlights his belief in combining clairvoyance with mediumship.
That's quite a story.
Yeah.
Okay, Antarctica gets a quick mention.
Just a suggestion for a future topic, seems like.
Right. Then something probably a lot of people ask about, the real estate market.
Yes, he addresses that directly. Predicts a freezing of the market.
Freezing how?
A slowdown in development, fewer transactions, lasting for quite a while. An economic prediction.
Okay. And then he looks north to Scandinavia, Norway.
Yeah, answering a question about their future. He predicts some refugee unrest there.
On what scale?
Smaller scale than elsewhere, he thinks, but enough to cause a shift. He predicts Scandinavian governments will become more radicalized and start deporting refugees.
And politically, does he see shifts there too?
Big shifts. He predicts Scandinavia will distance itself from the EU.
Really? And move closer to who?
closer to the UK. He sees a broader Scandinavian rebellion against the EU, contributing to its fragmentation.
Wow, that's a bold geopolitical prediction, but no war there.
No, he clarifies he doesn't sense war coming to Scandinavia itself.
Okay. And the final question he tackles about atomic weapons.
Yes, given all the global tensions. But his answer is a bit philosophical.
House.
He kind of reframes it. Says the current situation is more a fight with people and suggests the world needs a transformation, mentioning the large global population. Less a direct yes-no on nukes, more a comment on humanity's trajectory.
Leaves you thinking, well, we certainly covered a lot of ground here.
Absolutely, from Polish politics and global conflict scenarios to reincarnation, real estate, Scandinavian futures. It's a real mix.
It really is. The source material offers this, well, unique perspective on things.
Unconventional, for sure.
Yeah. So, for you listening, maybe think about this. In times like these, with so much uncertainty floating around, why do viewpoints like this, offering these kinds of specific, sometimes dramatic predictions, find an audience?
Yeah, what does that resonance tell us about our collective anxieties right now? Or our search for answers when things feel complex and maybe overwhelming?
Definitely something to mull over.